At a bustling corporate gala, everyone ignored her, hearing nothing, speaking to no one. But one single dad noticed the CEO's little daughter sitting all alone. Then he signed a simple hello, and in that moment, the entire room changed. What happened next will warm your heart. The grand ballroom sparkled under a cascade of crystal chandeliers, laughter echoing off marble walls. Guests in tailored suits and elegant gowns clinked glasses, their conversations a blur of success and status. Everyone seemed to belong, everyone, except one small figure in the corner. The CEO's daughter sat alone at a round table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her eyes scanned the room, trying to catch glimpses of faces, but no one looked back. She was deaf, and in this sea of wealth and chatter, her silence went unnoticed. Whispers passed by her, polite nods and smiles were carefully avoided. She felt invisible, a shadow amidst the glittering crowd. From the back of the room, a man leaned against the wall, watching quietly. He wasn't dressed in designer attire, his jacket was worn, his shoes scuffed, but his eyes were warm, observant, and full of empathy. This single dad had worked long hours just to keep his own small family afloat. Yet tonight, something pulled him toward the corner where the girl sat. The contrast was stark. Around him, the elite mingled, unaware of the quiet struggle in their midst. Here was a man of humility, noticing a moment of human vulnerability that others chose to ignore. And there she was, small, bright-eyed, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge her. He took a careful step forward, feeling an unexpected surge of courage. The noise of the room, the clinking glasses, the laughter, the chatter, faded in his focus. He could see the girl's apprehension, her longing for connection. And in that instant, the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of them. What would happen if someone finally saw her? Someone who didn't care about titles, wealth, or appearances. Someone who simply saw her as a human being. In just a few seconds, this ordinary man was about to change everything, not just for her, but for everyone in the room. The CEO moved through the crowd with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to attention. He smiled, shook hands, and exchanged pleasantries, every movement polished and precise. His suit was tailored, his watch gleamed under the chandelier lights, and his presence demanded respect. Yet, despite his confidence, there was a distance in his eyes, a man so consumed by ambition that the smaller, quieter details of life often escaped him. Meanwhile, in the corner, his daughter remained seated, her fingers fidgeting slightly in her lap. Her bright eyes betrayed intelligence and curiosity, but also a hint of loneliness. She longed to be part of the conversations swirling around her, but the language barrier and her shyness created an invisible wall. Guests glanced her way only briefly, unsure how to interact with someone who could not hear them. In this room full of chatter, she felt utterly invisible. Across the room, the single dad observed quietly. His jacket was worn, his shoes dusty from a long day of work, yet there was a calm warmth in his posture. He wasn't here for recognition or praise, he was simply a man who noticed what others overlooked. His own life was a constant balancing act, raising his child alone, working long hours to make ends meet, but empathy came naturally to him. He understood what it meant to be invisible in a world that only celebrates status. The stark contrasts were impossible to ignore. The CEO, powerful, wealthy, and influential, moving confidently through the crowd. The daughter, brilliant yet isolated, longing for recognition. The single dad, humble yet perceptive, ready to act where others ignored. For a moment, the camera, or the audience's focus, lingered on the juxtaposition. Wealth versus humility, status versus quiet dignity, obliviousness versus awareness. The tension built naturally, hinting that these worlds were about to collide in a moment neither the guests nor the viewers could anticipate. The daughter's hands twitched nervously. Her eyes darted toward the father-like figure who had quietly noticed her. And the single dad, sensing her unease, felt a pull stronger than any corporate hierarchy or social expectation. He realized that tonight, in this crowded, glittering ballroom, a simple gesture could shatter walls, ignite joy, and remind everyone what truly mattered. This was the calm before the storm, the moment where empathy and courage quietly prepared to rewrite the night. The gala continued in full swing. Guests laughed, clinked glasses, and exchanged polished conversations. Yet in the corner, the CEO's daughter sat quietly, her small frame almost swallowed by the grandiose ballroom. Every few moments, she would glance up, hopeful that someone might notice her, that someone might reach out. But each glance was met with polite indifference or awkward avoidance. A group of children, her peers in age but not in social grace, ran past, excited and noisy. She smiled faintly but didn't call out. She couldn't. Her deafness created an invisible barrier, a silent wall separating her from the exuberant world around her. Adults passed by, too busy networking to engage, their smiles fleeting, their glances cursory. The whispers and murmurs of the elite seemed to drift around her like a ghostly fog, leaving her alone in the midst of abundance. From across the room, the single dad noticed. His chest tightened, a pang of recognition striking him. He had seen this look before. His own child sometimes experienced it, and a cousin of his was deaf. The ache of loneliness, the frustration of being invisible, and the longing for a simple acknowledgement resonated deeply with him. In that instant, he understood that no wealth, no grandeur, could replace the warmth of being seen. He watched the girl's hands subtly fidgeting on the table, her lips moving as if trying to speak, unheard. Her eyes, wide and searching, reflected a quiet courage, a yearning for connection. She wasn't asking for the world, just a moment of acknowledgement, a spark of human kindness. The contrast was almost painful. A room filled with people dressed in their finest, yet none offering the one thing that mattered most, a genuine human connection. The single dad knew that he could give that gift. He took a breath, steadying himself, and decided that he would be the one to bridge this gap. The audience feels the tension now, the anticipation of the first step toward change, the emotional weight of a moment that could alter not just one life, but the perspective of everyone in the room. This was the turning point, the quiet moment before empathy would act, before human kindness would pierce the glittering, indifferent facade of high society. The single dad took a careful step forward, his worn shoes barely making a sound on the polished marble floor. He moved slowly, deliberately, so as not to startle her. The room's chatter, the clinking of glasses, and the laughter of the elite faded into the background, at least from his perspective. All that mattered was the small figure sitting alone in the corner, her eyes flicking up in quiet curiosity. He knelt slightly to meet her at eye level, his expression soft and reassuring. Then, with deliberate care, he signed a simple word, "Hello." For a moment, time seemed to pause. Her eyes widened, and the faintest trace of a smile appeared. She stared, almost in disbelief, as if this simple acknowledgement had the power to shatter the isolation she had felt all night. Slowly, she raised her hand and signed back, "Hello." The single dad's heart lifted. It was astonishing how one small gesture, an acknowledgement, a recognition, could change everything. Around them, the room continued its clamor, but the two of them were in a world of their own, connected in a language invisible to the crowd but vivid and alive to them. She leaned forward slightly, encouraged by his warmth. He responded with small, simple signs, gentle questions, and gestures that invited her into a conversation she had long been denied. Each exchange lit up her face, and her nervous tension began to melt away. Laughter, soft and genuine, escaped her lips, not sound, but a radiant expression of joy that anyone could see. Guests began to notice the change in her. Some paused, whispering, confused by the sudden shift in energy. The elite, accustomed to displays of wealth and status, were witnessing something far more valuable, a human connection, raw and unscripted. The contrast could not have been starker. Here was a humble single dad, worn from life's struggles, commanding attention not through power or wealth, but through empathy and kindness. And there was the CEO's daughter, previously invisible, now radiating a joy that no diamond or chandelier could replicate. The single dad smiled softly, his eyes reflecting pride and quiet satisfaction. He knew that this moment, simple yet profound, was a spark, the beginning of a transformation not just for her, but for everyone who witnessed it. In the corner of the room, the CEO noticed the interaction for the first time. Confusion flickered across his face, quickly replaced by curiosity. Something was happening here that money and status could not buy. And in that moment, the single dad's small, courageous gesture had begun to shift the balance of the evening. The stage was set, hearts were opening, and a room full of the elite was about to learn a lesson in the quiet power of empathy. The room's energy shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. Guests paused mid-conversation, noticing the daughter's laughter and the way her eyes now sparkled with life. Yet not everyone understood what was happening. The CEO approached, his brow furrowed, curiosity mixing with unease. He had seen the small man kneeling beside his daughter, signing words and coaxing a shy smile out of her. At first, he misjudged the scene. Who was this stranger? How dare someone approach his child without permission? The whispers among the guests didn't help. Some murmured, "Isn't that the janitor's dad? What's he doing here?" Others exchanged skeptical glances, unsure whether to intervene or continue their conversations. The single dad remained calm, his posture steady, his voice gentle, though the words were replaced by signs. He had no intention of overstepping, no desire for recognition. All he wanted was to connect, to see the joy of a little girl who had spent too long unnoticed. His actions were simple, sincere, and entirely human, but in this room of status and wealth, sincerity often sparked suspicion. The CEO's confusion intensified. He had spent his life controlling boardrooms, managing people, and orchestrating outcomes. But here, control slipped through his fingers. A man of no title, no power, was holding his daughter's attention, making her smile, and most painfully, making the CEO realize how absent he had been. Meanwhile, the daughter sensed the tension, but her focus remained on the single dad. His kindness had created a bubble of safety around her. She signed questions with curiosity, and he responded patiently, guiding her through the conversation with warmth and attentiveness. Around them, the crowd shifted. Some began to admire the interaction quietly, their faces softening. Others whispered judgments, uncomfortable with someone so humble commanding the emotional center of the room. The clash was clear. Wealth versus humility, influence versus empathy, pretense versus genuine care. Despite the misunderstandings, the single dad didn't waver. He continued to interact with patience and kindness, refusing to be intimidated by the judgmental eyes of high society. Each gesture, each sign, emphasized a quiet dignity far beyond material wealth. For the CEO, the moment became a mirror. He realized that status, power, and appearances meant nothing if they could not foster connection and happiness in the people he loved. The rising tension in the room wasn't just social, it was emotional. A reckoning was underway, one that would not be resolved through money or authority, but through empathy, courage, and the willingness to see others as human beings. And in that moment, the stage was set for a heartwarming transformation. A lesson in humility that neither the guests nor the CEO would soon forget. A subtle change rippled through the room. The CEO's daughter, once shy and withdrawn, now leaned forward, her eyes bright and full of life. The single dad had broken through her invisible walls with nothing more than a simple, heartfelt hello. Each sign, each patient gesture, drew her out of her shell. For the first time that evening, she laughed, a soft, genuine expression that lit up her entire face. Guests paused mid-conversation, momentarily forgetting their drinks and their polished smiles, captivated by the transformation before them. She began to sign stories, small gestures revealing her personality. The way she loved to draw, the way she noticed little details others overlooked, the sparkle of curiosity and intelligence that had been hidden behind her shyness. The single dad mirrored her signs with encouragement, patience, and gentle humor. He laughed silently with her, his eyes reflecting pride in her courage. Every movement of his hands, every smile communicated acceptance and warmth. And with each passing moment, the daughter's confidence grew. The contrast could not have been more striking. Around them, the room was filled with luxury, wealth, and status. Yet none of these things had sparked the genuine joy that now radiated from this small corner. It was empathy, human kindness, and attention that mattered most. The single dad, a humble man with no title or prestige, had become the center of a moment far more meaningful than any gala, any applause, or any social recognition. The CEO, standing nearby, watched with a mixture of awe and unease. He had seen his daughter light up, something he had struggled to achieve despite his wealth, attention, and resources. The realization hit him. For all his power, he had overlooked the simplest, most profound truth: true connection cannot be bought. The daughter's joy spread like a ripple, softening even the most judgmental of onlookers. Some guests exchanged looks, their expressions revealing the internal acknowledgement of the beauty of this human interaction. A quiet hush fell over the corner of the room where laughter, not chatter, reigned supreme. In a particularly heartwarming moment, the daughter picked up a small sketch she had made earlier and signed a shy look. The single dad nodded, genuinely impressed, and signed back, "You're amazing." Her eyes sparkled brighter than the chandeliers overhead. In that instant, the room saw more than wealth, status, or titles. They saw the power of empathy and connection. This was the turning point. The daughter had opened up, but more importantly, she had reminded everyone present of the simple, transformative power of being seen and acknowledged. One small act of courage, one moment of understanding, had created a domino effect of joy and humanity in a room that had been all formality and pretense. The stage was now set for the CEO's own awakening, an emotional reckoning that would change him as much as it had changed his daughter. The CEO stood frozen for a moment, his polished shoes rooted to the marble floor. He watched the daughter laugh and interact freely with the single dad, realizing with a sinking feeling that he had never truly seen her, not like this, not with her whole heart. Memories flickered unbidden. Missed bedtime stories, empty promises to attend events, hurried explanations, and distracted nods. His life had been a constant race for success, climbing the corporate ladder, securing deals, and maintaining appearances. And yet, here was his daughter, glowing with happiness, not because of any lavish gift or party, but because of a simple human connection he had never given her. He felt a pang of guilt and regret, sharp yet cleansing. The single dad, a man of humility and quiet strength, had achieved in moments what he, the powerful CEO, had failed to do in years. The realization was humbling. Money and status had their place, but they were meaningless in the face of genuine attention, empathy, and care. The CEO's perspective began to shift. He watched as his daughter signed back and forth with the single dad, laughter spilling silently between them. Every sign, every gesture, was a bridge built on kindness, patience, and respect. And he understood, with a clarity that cut through his ego, his daughter's happiness was far more important than his pride or reputation. For the first time that evening, he stepped back, allowing the room to fade into the background. The chandeliers, the glittering gowns, the polite applause, all of it was insignificant compared to this small corner of joy. He saw, truly saw, the single dad for the hero he was, a man with no need for recognition, who had given the greatest gift imaginable: his attention, respect, and compassion. The CEO's heart softened, and he made a silent vow. He would do better, not with grand gestures, but with the small, meaningful actions he had neglected for far too long. He would be present. He would see his daughter, not just as his child, but as a vibrant human being with thoughts, feelings, and dreams. In that moment of quiet redemption, the room's hierarchy shifted subtly yet profoundly. Power and wealth remained, but they no longer defined the emotional center of the evening. Instead, empathy, courage, and connection claimed the spotlight, reminding everyone present of what truly mattered. The CEO took a deep breath, the weight of realization settling in. A journey of rediscovery had begun, not just for him, but for everyone who witnessed the quiet miracle unfolding before their eyes. The CEO approached, his steps measured, his expression softened. Gone was the sharpness of authority. In its place was humility and genuine curiosity. He knelt slightly to meet his daughter's eyes, mirroring the same gentle approach the single dad had taken moments before. "Thank you," he signed quietly, almost as if speaking directly to both his daughter and the single dad at the same time. His gesture carried more weight than any verbal praise, reflecting a newfound awareness. He had been absent in ways that no amount of money or success could justify. The daughter's face lit up with recognition, joy radiating from her as she signed back with excitement. The single dad smiled, a quiet nod acknowledging that the connection had succeeded, not because of him, but because of the humanity at the center of it all. Around them, guests watched. Some were skeptical at first, uncertain of the unfolding interaction. But slowly, expressions softened. Laughter, warmth, and curiosity replaced whispered judgments. People began to understand. It wasn't wealth or status that commanded attention, it was empathy and kindness. The CEO extended a hand toward the single dad. Their hands met in a firm, respectful handshake, bridging worlds that had seemed impossibly distant just moments ago. The daughter squeezed both hands with delight, signing friends in her unmistakable joy. It was a small moment, yet monumental. In one corner of a grand ballroom, 3 lives had intersected in a way that redefined what mattered: connection over prestige, attention over appearances, kindness over judgment. The single dad, the CEO, and the daughter had created a bubble of warmth that reached even the most distracted corners of the room. The CEO took a deep breath, looking around and noticing the subtle change in the atmosphere. Guests were smiling, whispering, exchanging looks that carried a newfound understanding. The room, once dominated by clinking glasses and status-conscious chatter, now felt alive with genuine human emotion. For the first time that evening, the daughter wasn't invisible. She was seen, celebrated, not for her title or her father's influence, but for her spirit, her curiosity, and her courage to engage. And the single dad, who had acted without expectation, became a quiet hero, demonstrating that humility and kindness could move hearts more powerfully than any material display ever could. As the 3 of them stood together, a sense of balance returned to the room. Power had been tempered with empathy, wealth had been reframed by humanity, and a father had learned the priceless value of simply noticing the ones he loved. The evening, once a display of status and hierarchy, had been transformed into a living testament. Bridges could be built with gestures as small as a smile, a signed hello, or the courage to connect across divides. Weeks later, the memory of that night lingered like a warm glow. The CEO's daughter was transformed, not just in confidence, but in her outlook on life. She moved through her days with a newfound spark, sharing her thoughts more openly and engaging with those around her. Simple gestures, previously daunting, became moments of pride and joy. The single dad had ignited more than a smile, he had sparked self-belief. The single dad returned to his routine, humble and unassuming, but the memory of that night remained vivid. He didn't seek recognition or reward. His satisfaction came from knowing he had made a real difference. For him, the act of seeing someone truly, of connecting without expectation, was its own reward. The CEO, too, carried a change within him. He began dedicating more time to his daughter, listening rather than instructing, observing rather than directing. Board meetings, business deals, and accolades no longer consumed all his attention. He had discovered that the most valuable moments were not those celebrated publicly, but those shared privately with family. The quiet courage of the single dad had shown him that true leadership extends beyond offices and titles. It begins with empathy and presence. Even the guests, once preoccupied with appearances, carried a subtle shift. Stories of the daughter's laughter and the single dad's gentle heroism spread quietly through their circles, a reminder that genuine human connection transcends wealth and social hierarchy. In a world often measured by material success, the ballroom had become a small stage for a universal truth. Noticing, valuing, and nurturing one another is the greatest gift we can offer. Life had shifted, not dramatically, not overnight, but in meaningful ways. The daughter smiled more readily. The CEO listened more patiently. The single dad walked through the world knowing he had made an enduring impact, and all it had taken was attention, empathy, and the courage to reach across a divide. The ripple effect was subtle but powerful. One small act of kindness had reshaped relationships, inspired personal growth, and reminded everyone involved that human connection is not a luxury, it is essential. As the evening faded into memory, one truth stood clear. The greatest wealth in life is not measured by money, power, or status, but by the attention, care, and kindness we give to others. The small gestures, the signed hello, the patient smile, the willingness to truly see someone, can change lives in ways no amount of prestige ever could. The CEO's daughter had been invisible in a room full of glittering wealth, yet one single dad's empathy shattered that silence. His courage to act without expectation created a ripple that transformed not just her world, but the perspective of everyone around them. He reminded us that human connection, even in its simplest form, carries immense power. The CEO learned a lesson many of us overlook. Leadership, influence, and success mean little if we fail to notice the people who matter most. True legacy is not built in boardrooms or measured by accolades. It is built in the small, meaningful moments that foster love, understanding, and inclusion. For the daughter, life had opened up in a way she had never imagined. Her confidence, joy, and sense of belonging were gifts that no material reward could ever replace. And for the single dad, the act of kindness was a quiet affirmation. Humility, empathy, and courage are as transformative as any fortune. This story reminds us all of the universal truth. In a world obsessed with status and appearances, genuine connection is revolutionary. One simple gesture, offered sincerely, can light up a room, heal a heart, and inspire change. We are all capable of being the single dad in this story, the person who sees what others overlook, who chooses kindness over judgment, and who reaches across divides to create joy. So, the next time you encounter someone overlooked, shy, or struggling, remember, a smile, a hello, or a moment of attention can ripple far beyond what you imagine. True power lies not in wealth or titles, but in the capacity to care, to connect, and to bring light into someone's life. And as the chandeliers of that gala faded from memory, the lesson remained eternal. Empathy changes hearts. Attention creates joy. Kindness transforms lives. As the night ended, the ballroom slowly returned to its usual chatter, but the memory of that small corner lingered, an enduring reminder of the power of human connection. One simple gesture, a heartfelt hello, had broken walls, built bridges, and transformed lives. The single dad quietly walked away, the CEO reflected on what truly mattered, and the daughter discovered the joy of being seen. In a world often distracted by wealth and status, moments like these shine brightest. Remember, it's not titles or money that change lives. It's empathy, attention, and the courage to care.